Warning, this podcast typically features spoilers and strong opinions. Proceed with caution.
Welcome back to Two Grooms, One Plot, the podcast where two lifelong storytellers who are married talk about stories. I'm Pavi Proczko, audiobook narrator extraordinaire.
And I am Colin Funk, childhood development expert and teaching artist.
And today we're going to be talking about the first episode of Mary and George.
Does it have a little subtitle?
I don't think so.
Okay. I'm going to look it up. But you
Okay. So we're excited about that. This is like kind of our first looking at a pilot on its own and kind of talking about its merits.
Was it a pilot technically?
I mean, I don't know if they called it that, but that tends to be what first episodes are.
Yes, but like not if it's like straight to series.
I suppose not. Yeah. Well, the first episode at any rate. It is a limited series anyway. It's not intended to go on forever. But first, before we do that.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't know why I thought it might have had a little subtitle thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the first episode was called something and it was written somewhere that I saw.
Yeah,
maybe I just got
it was called something.
Yeah,
Second Son.
The Second Son.
Uh-huh.
Maybe that's what I thought. I thought the full title was Mary and George, the Second Son.
Yeah, the first episode was called that.
Okay, so if that was just the first episodes, so I mean, Mary
That's
and George,
the Second Son
is what we're
That's
reviewing
what we're
today.
reviewing. Yeah, you're right. But before we do that, let's do our moment of the week.
Great. I'll go first.
Okay.
We have been not putting it off, but we hadn't gotten around to it until now to watch Loot.
Yes.
The series because it's still happening, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, second season just is airing now.
With starring Maya Rudolph, who's amazing.
Mm-hmm. And your old friend Joel Booster. Yes,
which is still wild. I don't know why. It's like there's very few people that I've like known in my life that I'm like, you're on TV. You're in real movies and
stuff.
things. And,
yeah.
So when I see him, I'm like, I know you. Like you coached me in college. It's weird. But very fun. He's very good. The show is great. Very funny so far. But there was a lot of, because the premise of the show is this like rich woman is trying to like going through a divorce. So she's like trying to work with the charity foundation that has been opened in her name, essentially, that she doesn't even know anything about. And so she's like looking for a purpose for her life now that she's gone through this divorce and like trying to find it in this charity. And the woman who runs the charity kind of is like pushes back and it's like, you don't need to be here.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. You like essentially saying you're going to make things worse. I don't want you here. Please don't be here. And there was like weird pushback. There was like a whole bunch of tension between them. Yeah. And I kept thinking, and we kept like saying out
talking
loud,
about it. Yeah.
Okay, but she's given you lots of money. Like if
she's the boss.
If you like upset her or push her away, like don't like she could just say like, okay, I'm gonna close it.
Right.
This is just money of mine.
Right. Or hire someone else. I bet she could just do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we talked about it, and I kept being like, this is weird. But there's this great moment where they're having a meeting and essentially that woman agrees to let Maya Rudolph's character be a part of the charity. And I was like, this is weird that she's asking for permission to be a part of her own charity company.
Right.
And at the end of the meeting, Maya Rudolph essentially was like, just real quick before I go, was there any world in which you could have actually stopped me from doing this? And that woman was like, no. And I was like, all right, well, you're just very intimidating.
Yeah.
And she was like, thank you. But I love that. Like all of those concerns and thoughts were just like, oh, great. It's dealt with. They talked about it. Yeah. It's like brought up because it's like, it's a comedy. So
right.
like part of it is us to be like
that it works in a comedy that they can hold us in that kind of suspension of disbelief for a little bit longer, as long as we know kind of the other shoe's going to drop a little bit.
Yeah, as long as it's like not ignored as like a plot point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like not, it's not, it's like we're ignoring it as a plot device to get somewhere.
Right.
We're like, yeah, we see that like they're setting up the characters to be a specific way where the woman who runs it is like very serious.
Right.
Very tight-laced.
Type
Maya
A, yeah.
Rudolph is like
Flouncy,
loosey-goosey,
yeah.
party girl, rich woman who's like a little bit disconnected with reality.
Right. And it makes perfect sense that these two characters, like that Maya Rudolph's character would not have even thought of that. Like it's just kind of not her MO to be like bullying people into letting her do things.
That both the relationship and each character's identity clear. And it seemed to just be like, well, I feel like it'd be really easy to do this. And for them to just like acknowledge that like, yeah, that could have happened, but those characters wouldn't have done it.
Right.
To just like tell us that.
Yes.
It was really helpful to be like, great, I never have to think about that again. It's out of my mind. They know it's part of the world.
Right.
They
And
know it's in the air.
It deepens those characters too, because as you said,
does.
it's like that could have happened conceivably in a world, but how telling is it that it doesn't happen with this particular relationship?
Like I don't love the term plot holes because I think that's like an oversimplification of something. It's usually just like things that we read as untrue. We can't buy into them. We can't believe them for some reason or other. And I think like it's like little fixes like this that allow us to look past those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
They fix the plot holes, but they're not fixing plot holes. They're just like giving us a way to buy in.
And I think this actually plays into, I think the episode will air, but when I was talking about like the idea of author beats, like or author owned beats, where the idea that kind of the show has to tell us what's important. And so if we're sitting there and if they had never said that, we'd be like, well, that was funny at the end of the episode, but I still don't understand why she wouldn't have just been like, well, it's my company. I'm going to do it. It's it's my money. And the fact that even though she says it out loud, you know, an author, quote unquote, like there isn't some like narrator telling us, but it's like, if you think about like meta, it's kind of the show writers telling us through this dialogue, like, yeah, we know that was a weird thing, but it's because of this relationship. Right. So it's actually showing us what is important, who these people are, because that context is important to us. Yeah,
I think we forgive it very easily because it's a comedy, but you can be kind of obvious in other contexts too. Yeah. As long as it's not, sometimes when it's too obvious, then you're like, you're just telling me. Right. Just like you actually have to do it. Right. But it's not in a way that it's like, we're just telling you so we don't have to deal with it. It's like we're letting the characters acknowledge it. Yeah. And just have a quick conversation about it. Right. And in doing so are telling us this is important and this is why this was happening, but not in a way that's like, you just told us and didn't actually deal with it. Like it was still in a genuine way. Yeah. It helps too that the scene's actually over. It's part of like the resolution where it's not used as a tactic to get into she's already gotten the permission that she was looking for. It's all resolved. And then we just get a little bit more information. Yeah. It's interesting. It's well played. Really well done. And that's the importance of a moment. Like we can really do that. A moment lets us do that. I know we're not called Then a Moment anymore. But that was kind of the whole. We still love moments. We do love moments. Cool. Yeah. So that was good. Of the week. So yeah, we do. What's your moment of the week? My moment of the week. So I started and stopped, I think, at this point, playing a game on Nintendo. Always playing games. I am. It's called Inscription. Okay. Notably not so fun to watch. It's like is that the game that you've been? Yeah, it's like an 8-bit like card game. You're like building a deck and you're like, it's dumb. It looks dumb. I have no idea what happened. I don't get it. You
Sure.
sort of explain things, and I'm like, I don't get it.
It's kind of fun, and once you kind of get the hang of it, I don't know. I like the card game that is presented at the beginning. So the whole premise is that you are stuck. You like wake up in a cabin, and there's like some mysterious person who you can only see his eyes is like hidden in the shadows, and he's like, "Hey, we're gonna play this game, and then maybe you'll be able to like get out of the cabin, but you're like stuck here, so we're gonna play. And if you lose, you die." And so then you like play the game, and he like lays out this map, and you're kind of going down the map, and you get to choose different ways to go, and there's different stuff at those places, and you collect a deck, and then you play against this whoever this is. And then when you lose and you die, you get like he takes a picture of you, and then you become a card for the next iteration.
Right.
So then you like wake up and you're like someone new, and you get like the card from like the last play. It's very creepy when you actually start like playing it. It's much creepier than it looks at first glance, like, 'cause it looks kind of like really bad. But there was like a moment that was really interesting. Was like at first you just play the game and you're just looking at the board, and then it was the moment that kind of the world opens up and gets really eerie was when you realize you can get up from the table and you can like walk around the cabin and like look at different things.
Okay.
And that becomes important because at some point you can like manipulate the stuff in the cabin. And there's like statues, you can move them around. And when you do a certain combination of stuff, you can take this knife. And then you take this knife and you can take it to the table. And you're like with this knife at the table playing the game. And the knife gives you the ability to like rack up points for your game. So it's like if you're losing really badly, you can just like, invoke the knife and you'll get a bunch of points, and that might let you win easier.
Oh, sure.
Okay. But the whole thing is that the knife is actually jabbing your eye out.
What?
You stab your eye and you give your eye to the man to put it on a little scale. And so when you like, I know that was horrifying. Like it's kind of the moment where it's like, I'm like, oh, there's a knife. Cause like one of the first tools that you get is you get to like, because the way that you win is you basically like put little like pieces of gold, which I think you find out are teeth, but you put little pieces of something on a scale. So every time you like win, you get, you score points, a scale goes down. And then when he scores points, it evens out, and you try to like tip it. So one of the first tools you get is this pliers, and you're like, oh, you use the pliers to put something on the scale, and turns out the pliers are used to pull out your teeth.
Sure.
So you pull a tooth out and you put it on the scale, and it gives you a free point. I know, right?
Oh God.
So then the knife was like, you can use this to invoke a lot of points. And so when I first did it, because I was like, I'm going to lose, I need to do something. And you take it and you just like see, it's like all first person, like you're in the person's head, and you just like take the knife and you just like start stabbing your own face with it. And then the eye gets put on the scale.
This.
It was horrifying. But that becomes really interesting.
What is happening?
I know, it's really weird. And at first I'm like, why? It's just to be gross. But most of the stuff in this is not just to be gross. Because here what happens then is at the end of that bout, the guy takes out this chest and is like, you used your eye, so how about you get a replacement? And in there, if you pick the right eye, it allows you to see like glow in the dark stuff all over the cabin that you wouldn't otherwise be able to see unless you use the knife to take your eye out. And then you get another eye that lets you like see stuff. And then you start learning about like all these things in the cabin. Fascinating.
Okay. Yes. That's all we need to talk about that video game, I think.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
It was really horrible.
That I do see like that interesting thing where it's like you have to do... It's like very Saw. You have to do something terrible to move forward.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, these things that maybe in other games would like make it worse for you moving forward actually might give you an advantage moving forward.
Right.
So there's
it's
something
actually a
interesting
boon.
there.
It was really interesting. I don't want to play anymore, but that was like, it was those little like kind of peeling back a layer of the onion that was like keeping me coming back to play it, because mostly it's like really hard and I kept losing and dying.
Yeah.
But it was just every time you would like learn something new, be like, okay, I think I have a way forward, and it just was really good at giving that. And then I got to the end, and it wasn't great, because it's not the end. You like start a new game, and then it's a completely different game, and I'm very confused, and I don't want to play it anymore. But that first part, very cool.
I mean, that's like the thing about it. It's like there's a lot of layers, and it's very like intellectual, but also gross. But also like there's like all these like layers. There's like things to get past.
Yeah.
Things like I'm confused. Things like I'm scared or grossed out,
Right.
and like as their own barriers
Yeah.
to how to play the game,
Right.
which I don't know if I love.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think I do.
It's interesting, but I don't like in application. I don't know if I would want to do that.
Well, you might not. Yeah. It might not be your jam, knowing you. But I really do like it. And what's telling is like at the point where all those barriers have fallen, I'm at this point of the game where it's essentially like Pokemon, and you're going to like Pokemon gyms to like beat all the people in the gyms. It's like a totally different game now, and there's those barriers aren't there anymore, and I'm totally lost interest.
Right, but there's like a different intellectual barrier at this point.
Yes, it's just a different game altogether.
But maybe it's not. Maybe there's
Well,
another
and the thing is that
layer.
it is another layer, because it's telling like the history of where you came from, but it's
another layer. That's what I mean.
It's just
that is what I'm saying.
It's too much at this point.
There is now a new intellectual barrier layer on top of it.
It was fun when it was just in the cabin, and now that we've left the cabin, I'm less interested.
Okay, sure. All right, cool.
No, that was very cool. I recommend it. I do. I liked at least the first part.
If you're watching your partner play video games, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're playing together, if you both like deck building games, that could be fun.
Sure, maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyway, okay, those are our moments.
Yeah. So it's synopsis now.
It's time for the switch hit synopsis for Mary and George, the second son.
Right. So we open with Mary giving birth.
Giving birth. Yes, they drop the baby. And she's mad about it, but she's like,
oh, he's a second son. Nobody will expect, like, you won't get anything from life.
yeah, she monologues at the little baby.
Yeah, very. I mean, as only Julianne Moore can do.
I know, on the nose, and Julianne Moore is wonderful, and
she's so good. She's one of those people that like could take a terrible script, and you're like, yeah, that's like a normal person would say that. And I'm like, how?
I don't know how she does that.
I would read it on paper and be like, that's nonsense.
Yeah.
That's garbage.
Yeah. So
Which
then,
is very, very good. And not that monologue is garbage, but like monologues that are like that kind of heavy-handed
they can go very badly.
very bad.
Yeah.
But there's like a general style. We'll get there.
Yeah.
We're jumping. But
so then telling, important, seemingly, at least symbolic, she chooses not to cut the umbilical cord right away.
very symbolic.
Which is like, I'm like, oh my God. But yes, like there's a lot of symbolism like this. There's like these symbolic moments.
Yes, they do not shy away from heavy symbolism.
Yes. And that's where we get, again, into the style. But
and then we switch, like right after that scene, we transition to that son, older, has now hung himself.
Tried to hang himself, for sure.
Well, he has hung himself.
He has, and he
didn't
just didn't do it well.
And she cuts him down.
She cuts him down, and seemingly he's on. She wants to send George, her second son, to France to learn to be a gentleman because she's in this family. She has married into a like a really minor noble family, and so there's like not a whole lot of prospects.
And
for
the
her
husband
specifically.
is terrible and won't let them do anything.
The husband is awful and syphilitic, and then the oldest son is I don't know, touched, I guess. I don't know. He's like handicapped somehow. It's not particularly clear, but he's just not functioning to 100% for sure.
Sure.
And then there's like 2 other children, but they're younger, of course. And so like all of like Mary's hopes rest on
the second
son's shoulders, who is like refuses to go to Paris, and he's in love with like one of the servants, and it like threatens to kill himself. And she's like, "No, you won't do it." Yeah, he's very moody, and she's very like flippant about it.
Yeah, she's like, "No, you're gonna go," because husband dies.
Yeah, the husband dies. Yeah,
and she is left with no money, and so she has to marry another man to be able to send George to France.
Right.
And so
like a lot of time skips because we see kind of like their relationship at the beginning, which is like, I want to send you to France. Then sometime later, the father dies. And then
those things have happened.
Sometime later, she marries, you know. It is like weeks, I guess, because she doesn't wait very long. But yes, so she gets the money to send him to France.
So by marrying this other man. And he goes, learns how to be a gentleman in French society.
In this like sex house where everybody's just like having
like
sex all the time.
I have no idea.
I have no idea what it is. Like a frat house, but
like
I
it's
don't
friends.
know.
But ends up like she knew, because like the mom had correspondence with the man who was like teaching him how to get into society. She's essentially like, we find out as the episode goes on that she has this plan because she sees something in George.
Yeah.
That being latent homosexuality, and is like, I want to foster that because I know that the king right now,
The King of England,
also loves young, beautiful gay men, and my son is the most beautiful. So that's her plan: send him to France, turn him gay there, and so when he gets back, she's also gotten her husband to host the king at their estate, and she's able to make some connections.
Yes.
She's able to talk to the king once, but also able to make friends with the one.
Well,
Englishman.
because King James is Scottish, and so all of his like entourage are Scots, and he's got one Englishman.
Yes, and
on
makes
the entourage,
friends.
makes friends with that Englishman so that he can get an English boy on the entourage.
Right. And so that guy wants to get an English person into the king's entourage.
Yeah.
And so when George comes back from France, Mary's like, great, I pulled a connection. You're now going to like serve the king food.
You'll be cupbearer, but then he switches to food bearer, which is important because the guy that was the food bearer and was really excited about it, apparently, trips him.
Because it's a big deal.
And it's
they're
like
all trying to move up in society.
Yes, they're all just
it's all
pulling
political
strings.
society games.
Maneuvering. And so then George trips and falls and spills all of the meats on the ground and then starts a brawl. Like he starts beating up.
Wailing on that guy.
Wailing on the guy, but apparently that's a crime to like...
Yeah. So
cause violence.
King's like
the Chamberlain, Lord Chamberlain,
his sexiest henchman. They essentially say as much. Comes over and is like, you know what the punishment is for starting a fight in front of the king? You lose your hand. And trying to cut off his hands, and the king's like, no, it's fine. You're fine.
Yeah.
And so essentially lets him go, but then he's fired.
Yeah.
He goes home and he's like,
ruined everything.
Steals the knife.
Oh, steals the knife that was used for the umbilical cord.
Umbilical cord knife, and is like, I'm gonna kill myself. And Mary finds him, and he explains like everything that went wrong, and she's like, no, he saved your hands because he likes you.
Yeah.
He thinks you're cute.
You got to weigh in.
So
and then they end the
this is
episode.
exactly how I wanted this to go. Yeah. You're fine.
Yeah. They end the episode and they're like, ha 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 ha. They're all like laughing together.
Very silly. And so that's the episode.
That's it. Yeah. And that's interesting. What did you know about
Nothing.
this story?
Zero.
Yeah.
Absolutely zero.
I did very light research, just to, I was curious to know how true it was to history. And it's based on a book that's like a semi-fictionalized telling of this story.
Yeah. At this point, aren't they all?
They are all, yeah, for sure. But it's from what we watched, and like it was like a really short like Time magazine article that I read that was just like, here's what you need to know about Mary and George and the King James the First.
Yeah.
And it's like so far like they have all the main players there, and like of course we can't like know what all the private conversations were like,
That's
but like
the point. Yes,
it's that's kind of how it went.
Right.
And
the order of events.
Yeah.
Right.
So far, the order of events is that's all they actually talked about in the article. It's like everything that happened in episode 1, basically.
They'll do
they do talk about, because if you know anything about British monarchy, which I don't really, not very much, because I didn't even know that James I was gay. Who knew? I didn't know. And like openly so.
Okay.
I know, right?
Well,
all the popes too.
How much of that history too was like rewritten or like ignored and
well, curious. It's like, because this is the James that sponsored a retranslation of the Bible. This is the King James version, the new King James, or the King James version of the Bible, and he was like very Catholic and hated the Sodomites, but was a Sodomite.
Weird.
Yeah, really weird, right? So if you know anything about monarchy, then you'll know how James I ends. We won't talk about that here because I don't want to spoil it for Colin.
I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't read
Suffice
the book.
to say, they all die eventually.
Well, obviously.
Yeah. So
They're all going to die. Like, I don't.
Yeah. But I am really interested in talking about how this first episode kind of
Yeah, I mean, like, let's talk about that for just a second.
Yeah.
Like, talk about spoiling things that are historical fiction.
Yeah.
I love finding things out as I watch things.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, this story's very intriguing so far. Like, it's, there's always like an element of like, this story's really interesting because it's history.
Yeah.
I'm like, if that's true, that's wild.
Right.
Which is fun. But I'm also, but I'm like, I am tempted to look into it more. I want to do more research, but I'm also like, I find myself being like, do I want to spoil it for myself by knowing real history?
I know.
Like, is that actually spoiling though? Because of course you'd never know how things are going to go.
Right. I mean, it's like watching Titanic, right? It's like, that the ship's going to sink at the end.
But like, if there's like other events and accounts of things
Yes.
that happen, I'm just like, I want to find out.
Yeah. And there's like so much in history that about like whether it's a spoiler, it's like, there's just like a lot that we infer or we suppose. And so they take artistic license and make decisions about some of these things.
For sure.
So even if you do know,
you can't,
right.
even the written accounts are only
Written accounts, right. They're
We don't
from
know
someone's
how,
perspective. When was it written? Like so many of these things were written like 150 years after they happened, and there's just like word of mouth.
Right.
Or some monk like wrote some note down somewhere and someone else compiled it. But
yeah, the point is like, there is an interesting element of historical fiction being something that it's like, do I think about it the same way as spoilers? Like, if I had actually, like, if I had known the story beforehand, I wouldn't be like, it's spoiled though. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
well, because it's like curious,
doing
how do we
research.
do it? How does it happen?
Right.
Because that's like Tudors. Like we know what happens to most of the wives of Henry VIII, right?
Right.
It's like we know that Anne Boleyn's going to get her head chopped off. We know that.
Yeah.
It's famous. We are curious how it gets there.
Yeah, of course.
And there's like a bit of like, oh, I hope he doesn't do it this time, even though he's going to. But it's like, oh man.
Yeah. So yeah, that's something that I am very intrigued just in general. So I might do a little bit of research because I don't think it'll do very much in terms of like spoiling things.
Yeah, I think I would have been happier not knowing.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, I think don't.
But
because
now,
I think just because
so
I
maybe
didn't know,
won't
and like if you do know, again, it's not going to really ruin like the story. It's going to be great or however good it is, in the end. But
there might be something interesting.
There's interesting things that I'm like, I actually didn't know how that story kind of like the culmination and then like the intrigue of this time, and I think I would have rather not known. Just for the sake of learning it, would have been cool to do it on the show. It is a cool story anyway, but
yes. Yeah. Okay. Well,
so that's my recommendation for you, at least.
All right. Well, then I will avoid it.
Yeah.
I won't do any research. Oh no.
Yeah. So that said, how do we think this? What promise does this give us for like the TV show? As like a first episode, we haven't really done this, like reviewing like a first episode to see like, is this worth it? What has it done to kind of build the intrigue?
Yeah, I mean, one thing for me is the way they're setting up the storytelling stylistically feels very unique to me. Yeah, it's not like crazy and weird, but there are elements that feel very, it's like it's a period. It doesn't feel like it's done just like a period piece. It doesn't feel like it's done like when they're trying to like really contemporize period pieces. Yeah. There's like kind of a middle ground.
It's somewhere in the middle there.
But it's like doing its own thing. It's keeping the integrity of the time period, not frilling it up, like keeping it really kind of grounded in realism, but not being like, look, it's very contemporized. Like we're putting our contemporary sensibilities onto it. It doesn't really feel like that either. Yeah. And I think it's just like it's strengthened by things like the passing of time is it's moving, it's clipping through time. It's not giving us like 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later. No, but it's not explicitly like that. Important. It's either like not important or it's like clear enough. Like time has passed. It's fine. We're moving. Like obviously time has passed. We don't need to know that it was 2 weeks or 3. Like it's.
Don't they do that though? And it's like a joke almost. Where she's like, he's like, oh, you know what, you don't have any money. She's like talking to her lawyer. You don't have any money, so the next thing you need to do is you need to like get married again. Do and it would be appropriate if you waited at least 4 weeks, and then it like cuts immediately to 2 weeks later. Yeah.
And that's right. They do that once, and that's like, it's comedy. It feels like
it's so telling about her. Like she is so ambitious, and I think
they're. This was like a very strong start as a episode.
Yeah.
The full episode is like, opening shot, they drop a baby on the ground.
Yeah.
Right from the birth canal onto the ground. Like it was like.
Next scene, he's hanging.
Yeah.
Next scene, the father's dying.
And the language they're using is so forward and so direct. We're not like. Because this is political intrigue. Usually there's like a lot of like veiled language.
And it's like none of it's veiled. And it's really interesting that way.
There's the king. He has all of these men that he sleeps with.
Yeah. Even when she like meets the king, she meets the chamberlain and the chamberlain's like, what are you doing up? And she's like, you're in my house. But also, oh, you are so handsome and beautiful. You must be really scared because he's going to like find someone new. Like how, like, she's like telling him her plan effectively.
yeah.
And he's like, well, that doesn't exist. And then the king overhears the conversation, comes on, it's like, yeah, I'd like to meet that one. It's just so interesting that it's like, you think that intrigue and political intrigue has to be veiled like that.
On
subtext, and there is no. This is all
the walking on the tightropes and being like, because you do have to like walk those lines, but it's like so interesting that they're like, or not, or you just like jump right in,
right,
or just like do it, because she's like, she is not. I find it fascinating that this character is like swinging big and just like it's working.
Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't, but she keeps going. You know, it's like, she's like,
yes, but not
invite the king. And he's like, I don't want to do it. I've done it. It sucks. And she's like, just do it. And she does. The king won't meet with her until like later, and she like runs into them in the hall. But like,
he won't meet with her.
He won't meet with her. He doesn't come down to dinner, and then she like last ditch effort. Hey, Lord Chamberlain, will you stay?
Yeah,
you stay with us. No, and he just leaves like not even. And that's interesting. It's like not even like what we'd expect in a period piece, where he's like, I decline your request, and I am tired, and I have to like pretend I have these airs, and he just says no. And he leaves.
Or like making things so complicated. Oh, you made the wrong step, so now everything's 17 times harder for you.
Right.
You're like, oh, that's exhausting. Like,
yes.
The
challenge is already a challenge.
Yes, it's already challenging, and she has failures.
Yeah.
It's not just success after success after success, but it's not like, well, you've ruined it because you've stepped out and taken a chance.
Yeah.
That is the difference.
Yeah.
Is like, especially in like intrigue-based things. It's like, what did you say? Oh, did you tip me off that you know that thing?
Right.
Oh, bail.
Right,
Now you've ruined your chances of, no, I don't want anything to do with you.
All it is just like a change in tack, because it's like she tries some things and each one doesn't work, but the other side that is stopping her is confident in what they're doing. So there's no like, oh, cut and run. You now are blocked from access, period. That's not how it works.
Well, even when he messes up at the end, it's like very clear. It's like, yeah, you screwed up that. Like, that's not the only thing. And like, you clearly made an impression. It's like, there's so many times like that where it feels like they really use that as the tension in those things. And it's boring. I get like, it's
like, oh my God, it's just hard. It's just hard.
It's hard, and he messed up, which makes it harder.
Right.
And sometimes when you mess up, that's the other thing, because it's history. It's like, this is actually real people and real interactions, that sometimes like you don't have to like walk the tightrope, or if you do this like social faux pas, that you've ruined everything, and then this like system will swing into place to like karmically
they're humans,
drag you into this. No, people are like
people are people.
People are not. We cannot rely on people to be
consistent.
Not at all.
Right. And
we can rely on people to
be inconsistent,
be attracted to other people. Like there's like things that we can rely on people.
Yeah.
And sometimes like we forget about that in intrigue, where it's like, oh, you wouldn't, like, you're not going to convince me to do that. And sometimes like, yeah, sometimes just like waving a pretty face in front of someone is going to work.
Forever. That's like that is timeless.
And it would be very boring if we were just seeing story after story after story, if that's all that was happening.
Yeah.
But it's also boring to just like ignore that happens all the time.
Right. That was like so much of, especially if you had no prospects, it's like, well, I have myself. That's like my number one resource is me. Right. It's my body. And as they say in France, bodies are bodies, or whatever it is. A body's just a body. A body's just a body. And I wanted to mention too, just about how like the kind of the coarseness of the dialogue, that it's like a little bit anachronistic and just like, you know, it's updated with, it's not, as you said, it's like somewhere between being updated for modern dialogue and being in period. It's like clearly not like genuine, obviously, because they spoke differently, but it's also not like super trendy in the way they speak, but they do speak kind of in our vernacular to some extent. There's a lot of like swearing they speak. I guess I don't know exactly how people spoke in the 1600s, but
literally, like, that's my point, is like sometimes they like Shakespeare up.
Yeah. And it's like, why would you? Like,
but it's like, that's not actually how people spoke.
Right.
Like they did, like it wasn't that flowery all the time.
Yeah.
And
it really humanizes them in this show. That's what I've noticed, that it's like, it allows us to, they become so much more grounded.
Right. Yeah.
In everything that they're doing. And it helps that they're not like, tiptoeing around each other in topic. They get right to the point.
Well, especially because we're seeing conversations with people who are close. You know what I mean? Like that's we're not, when you're in confidence with someone, you're not just like, you're not talking in secret code all the time.
Right.
It doesn't have to be for the audience's sake to like keep information at bay. So it's more of a mystery.
Right.
Because it's not like a mystery. It's like, it is showing the power dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like there's a strategy going on and that like pieces are moving.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's almost like more of a very straightforward chess match.
Yeah.
We're like, I'm moving here. Well, that one didn't work out for me, so I'm moving here.
Yeah.
But we're not watching like a slaughter and then someone have to slog through their last piece hoping to get, the win. It's...
Yeah. There's like the one moment when it's like right after he beats up the other server and then is about to get his hand chopped off. This is kind of the moment where we get that pomp that you'd expect out of that. And we're in a circumstance where that makes sense. We're in front of the king of Denmark or something like that. There's another king there, Holland or something. And then, but he's like, oh, there's no need to do that. What say you, king? Should we allow him? And then, what say you, my queen? The gay king is like asking his wife, who then comes in and like supports him to not cut the hands off because her husband's lover wants to cut the hands off. So she's like, no, I think I'm going to do it how you want to do it.
Yeah.
Pointedly,
the king like playing them off of each other.
Right. And it's like, that's
it's
the
like
one
fun political intrigue without like it being, I don't know, like weird and unspoken. Like, I don't know.
And it's right. It's fun. And it's like so obvious what is happening too. So it's like, even their words, there's quote subtext, but it's like so obvious. Everyone in that room saw what happened. Everyone in the room knows what the queen means.
But also everyone in the room saw that the one guy tripped the other guy and he's getting beat up. It's not like they're like, you're going after him, but like we saw him trip him.
Right.
Like that was kind of an aggressive first move.
Yeah.
Like that is also, we're not going to just ignore that.
Right.
So it's interesting. It's like interesting that like it's there and there is enough that's like unspoken without it feeling like everything is like a weird
secret or like no one can ever have their motives on their sleeve. It's like you kind of know what everybody wants and everybody else kind of knows what everybody else wants.
Right. There isn't even like veiled language around like the homosexuality.
Right.
Like, the king's not going to want to sleep with you. He has his like horde of men that he sleeps with.
Right.
Like it's not like, it's not like a secret.
Right. Right. And that kind of like gives me a little bit of hope, like thinking about, how tight-laced we got in the, 1800s and through the 1950s and 1960s. And now it's like opening up again. But I just wonder like these kind of open secrets. And it's like, it's kind of like faux pas in the past in those times to like be that open about it. But like everybody kind of knew and everybody was kind of doing it. And it was okay. Like,
it was okay.
I mean, it's even the way that, because people had more important things to worry about. Like she, for example, has no qualms about it because she knows it's how she's going to get ahead using her son, which is really messed up. But like, he's in on it too. He wants to get ahead,
Right. It's like we talk about the you and I specifically. We talk about ethics being tied to getting your needs met.
Yes.
And
kind of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but in ethics. Yeah.
Right. Well, they are tied in a way where it's like, yes, if we are the less, the lower we're down on our hierarchy of needs, like the most base needs not being met, the less of those needs we have met, the smaller our ethical bubble becomes. And this is a family like that as a woman does not have power to like get a job, to make money in any other way than through a husband and through a
child who likes her enough.
And I don't think she's doing anything in an unethical way.
Right.
She's like doing it in an ethical way for like, she's using her son as like a pawn to get to the king, but not in a way that's like being like treating him like an object.
Right.
She's treating him like a person. Like she's
treating him like the valuable thing,
just like
and
any
person that he
parent
is.
Like
this is you
pushing
can
him past
do
his
this
comfort
thing.
zone because that's what a parent does.
Yeah.
And not like to go to France and to do this thing. Ultimately, he is like choosing to do these things on his own.
Yeah.
She like gets him involved in it, but like it's all as ethical as it can be because like she's just in this position where that's what she needs to do. Like she is like pretty aggressive about getting her husband, but she's not painted as like the relationship with that new husband.
It's transactional, but they both know.
And she's treating him kindly.
Yeah, so far, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So far.
Yeah, so far
I'm
she's
curious to see like I'm just like, I like that they're not making that transaction thing like I'm doing this, but it's hard and sad.
Yeah, it's not a Cersei Lannister situation where there's just like it's a burden. It's like, no, actually this is great. This is great for me.
This is great. So I'm gonna like, I don't think she's even like play acting the interactions with him.
No.
Because I think she's just genuinely happy about the arrangement.
Yeah.
And so she's happy to like do her part in what they agreed on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just find that really interesting. It gives that character a ton of power.
Yeah.
And to like pull a real historical figure and really give her that power in a way that it's not like we're having this like she has to be like rude and mean to get it done.
Right.
She has to be like sneaky and backhanded. Like, she's being strategic.
Yeah.
But she's also being kind of pleasant.
Yeah. And overt and it's just she just isn't like sugarcoating anything to like pretend to be something else that she's not. She's just like, this is just I need to survive. So I'm not going to wait that long to go get married. Yeah, my husband died. He was a douchebag. And he didn't leave me even the house. He didn't leave me any money, didn't leave me a house. He gave the house to his cousin. I got to go get married. I'm not waiting 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 2 weeks later. There's a thing and there's a divorced person there.
It's like
let's do it.
I mean, like comparing it to like Game of Thrones, there's something about that strength of this character and the strength of the decisions, us at least like her and other people in the way they communicate, but especially how she is behaving. They can bring us that imagery, like dropping a newborn baby on the ground, having someone attempt suicide a couple times. These other like big, like really tense, could be tense situations in other shows. And it allows us to like know that there's tension, but gives us this like comfort.
Yeah.
In a way that like Game of Thrones was like actively trying to make us uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying like you need to like make us comfortable with a story.
Sure. But we kind of have there's like a platform to stand on. Like there's something to latch on to.
I think it makes a stronger story.
For sure. Yeah. Wow. It's interesting.
So I am one, just like generally interested in the way that they didn't like waste. They could have made that first episode. That could have been a whole series.
Yeah,
that first episode could have been the full series.
It could have, and I'm glad they didn't.
Season, I mean.
Yeah, it could have. A lot of stuff happens, but like that would have been such a slog. They would have had to like put in so much dialogue. It's better this way. It's
better. It's
better this way.
Streamlined. We're like actually hitting strong story points without having to like make up so many.
Yeah.
And bring us through all these like weird trials that like just like shake us around a bit until we're like, what is happening though?
Yeah. We get to the inciting incident, I'm guessing, of the story.
Yeah.
He meets the king. He met the king.
And it's a really great exposition episode.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, how do you do exposition?
Good example.
That's a great example.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everything is so strong. They keep you so like they bring you through the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of cool, fun stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
They keep you interested.
Yeah. Yeah. We're skipping around a lot and seeing all of like the big moments.
Yes, we're not.
And what do we need to know?
We're not confused about them. I think that's a big problem with a lot of period pieces in general, especially with lots of different
factions and things. Yeah,
I'm like, we're like, okay, well, what's happening? I don't remember.
I'm
who
not
that
sure
is.
what's happening.
Like,
yeah,
we're learning about it. It's important. Like, we're being direct about what we're being taught, but in a way but like through action, we're seeing like the interesting things that happen. We don't have to like. Somebody doesn't have to come in and be like, once upon a time there was all like, and set it up like that.
Right.
We get to like watch it unfold.
We actually get to see it. Yeah.
And not in a long, boring, annoying way.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great story in and of itself. That episode is a very interesting, like start to finish. Like that would be a great story.
It's a great story. Yeah, it was.
It was.
And I'm interested to know what happens now.
It's a full story.
Yeah.
That's another part of like, if you're doing exposition,
you have to give it an arc.
Give it its own arc.
Yeah.
It's its own story. The exposition part is its own story. It's not a throwaway.
Yeah.
You should be able to break down most pieces of any story. And if you're like, this part of the story, that should be its own story.
Every piece of story has to have its own arc. 100%. Yeah. Down to like the smallest beat.
Yes. Well, we've talked about how full stories happen in a moment.
Yeah.
That's why we can tolerate TikToks.
That's true.
Because literally in less than a minute, we get full stories.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It does not take that long for us to understand a full story.
Right.
And so, it does it. It's doing it. So far as it is giving me the information, it is doing it in an interesting way.
Yeah.
The characters are very strong. The action is very strong. The dialogue is very strong.
And I'm interested in what's going to happen. It's really, it's hooked me.
And the action and the plot is interesting. I'm literally like, what happens next?
Yeah.
I want to know.
Yes. And I love the whole relationship between Scotland and England. I find it so fascinating.
Yes, you have it.
So I'm like, what is this? It's a Scottish king?
I mean, I think there's an inherent like interest, like interesting thing about how countries have changed power and how they've, how they transition through different power groups
regimes.
And, there's something just like very interesting because like it has been so static for the most part. The world has been pretty static for a while,
right?
Like politically,
sure. Yeah, borders don't move nearly as much as they did.
Yeah, frequently, and when they do, it's like
it's a big deal. Yeah.
And it's scary, and it like feels very, but that was happening all the time.
Right. Yeah.
We just like happen to be in a place in the world where it's like, that's actually not what we're doing anymore.
Right.
And so it's, I think like going back to that time period, it's just like, there's something
really,
so
there's so
fascinating.
intriguing about it. Yeah. It's so foreign to us.
It feels like fantasy.
It does. Yeah. But that's like what it was. That's
why
how it was.
That's why we set fantasy in those time periods, because it feels so magical, and because we've put so many systems in place.
Right.
Even though some of these systems don't feel like they are working very well all the time, especially politically.
Yeah.
They
are keeping
systems.
us quite safe for the most part,
safe
worldwide.
And there's a consistency in them. There's more wiggle room for things to change, and and there's a magic about that, where it's like, we look at the political system in our country, and it's like, we might not agree with it, but there's no magic wand. We can't just like make a change quickly. Yeah. We can't wave a shiny thing in front of the president and have them like change a bunch of things because of it, because there's a system in place.
It's like, it frustrates us, and that's kind of the point, right? It's like the point is to make it hard like to change.
Yes. Yeah. And so flexibility in
power structures is like so intriguing.
It's really very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a big deal when a president like resigns and we're like, what? Yeah. Even the potential, just an impeachment, like the potential of it
like
is just
these unwritten, like not rules. He's just like, that's not a real rule, but like people have been following it for a long time. When that is
pulled out from, the rug is pulled out from under us, and we're like, what is happening?
What is going on?
Yeah. Yeah. And that was just like the reality. There was just like the whims of monarchy, and that's so interesting.
I think like generally, I'm excited.
I'm excited about it, and very excited about it being, I don't know, gay historical, semi-fiction.
Obviously, like we're gonna like
that.
We're gonna like it.
Yeah,
I do. I mean, like, I'm always happy for more gay content.
Yeah,
it feels like, I think we've talked about this before, but like, I know that like when. Like I get that most people aren't gay.
Yeah.
And so like, it doesn't make sense for like most media to be gay. But like in my life, it's all gay. Right. Yeah. So personally, like all of my media that I consume could be gay.
Right.
Because like, that's my experience.
Right.
So I just like think like, like not everything that's made needs to be gay, but like I also like want as much as I can get, because like, that's literally my whole life.
Yeah.
As a gay person, I am always gay. I'm never not gay.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think there's like something about I don't
like, in the grand scheme is different than like if they were to, if all art was to mimic life, right? If it was like to mirror life, it would be very gay for us.
Yes.
Because that's
every
what it is.
Every single one of my days is
gay. Yeah.
Colored with homosexuality.
Swaths of pink and magenta.
So I can,
fuchsia.
What? Like I could, just like there are movie after movie after movie of straight romance and this and this. Like I wish there was as much content.
Yeah. Good content. And that's I think probably what I'm most
I mean, yes, there is more bad content, but there's still not even the scope of content.
Yeah, right.
It just also happened to be that a lot of the content that has been made, it's had to be done through independent channels with less money and less like people that don't care to like rise the ranks, so they're not maybe as good.
Right. It doesn't get the Hollywood treatment so much.
Right. So there is a lot of bad gay.
Yeah.
bad gay. There's a place for it. But
Sure,
like,
it's almost like created its own genre a little bit. It's like it's its own genre of film and TV now.
Right.
But I am looking forward to having this kind of straight intrigue, if you will, that's gay. Like it's a political intrigue, and it's Game of Thrones or House of Cards, which actually ended up being a little bit gay anyway. But it's House of Cards, but like in this like gay world that is like nobody questions it. It's not a question.
And it's not like a gay world. It's the world.
It's just the world.
Just history.
Yeah.
It's just like we're actually get to. It's like in that. Yeah, we're gonna focus on the gay storyline because like that is their life. You know what I mean? Like that just happens to be the relationship between like men.
Yeah.
That is the whole thing is trying to get this man hooked up with this man. Like that was
the story.
The story.
So that's what we're gonna do.
And that's what happened in history. Like that's the historical story. So we're gonna focus on gay things.
It's so surprising that it's like so hasn't really come up as a story before. It's like so intriguing. It's like underutilized as a story.
People are afraid of gay people.
Scary. All the colors I'm wearing. If you're not watching, you're missing out on this wonderful outfit that I'm wearing. It looks like a ghillie suit.
A ghillie suit.
Mm-hmm. I'm going hunting, but it's like hunting at a, I don't know, gay club. I don't know.
No, I've seen the outfits for that. That's very different.
Yeah. Shall we move on to our ratings?
Let's do it.
All right. Story.
How many stars did we give it? Out of 5?
Out of 5.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
I think I give it a 4. Yeah. I think I give it a 4.
I am gonna give it a 5. I don't know why. It's an episode, and it's like succinct, and they tell the story, and it's like it's a good piece of the story, but like readying me for more story. I like it. It's like I'm having a hard time finding a flaw in the storytelling.
Yeah. No, I hear that. I think I'm reluctant to give. Maybe I'll do a 4.5. We'll say 4.5.
I'm trying not to be precious about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, they can be that's why we have 3 different ratings. Because
that's true. You're right.
If there's like something not working, we can pull it out.
I think I know that it's stylistic, but I think that especially that like beginning monologue was a little jarring to me, and I think that's like.
Is that a story or a technical?
I think I would give it a story because that we're relying on that monologue to give us the context. Speaking of author-owned beats, where it's like, you are a second son and you are not going to have anything. And then she like says it again when he's an adult later.
It does. I think it does some good storytelling. I like it. That doesn't bother me. You're welcome.
It gives me a 4. I'm going to leave it at 4.
Leave it at 4.
Okay. Technical. I think a lot of the performance is great. I mean,
excellent performances.
And the costumes are wonderful.
Costumes are
sick.
Stunning.
Yeah. I think I give it a 5.
I want to like study the costumes and be like, are they historically accurate?
Are they? Yeah.
I'm like very interested in that. Because they look very well done and they're very interesting. So you gave it a 5?
I give it a 5. Yeah. Technical 5. Yeah. I like the performances. I think the comedy's coming through.
Yeah, I think probably a 5. I have nothing to fault this episode. Technically.
You know what? I think I'm going to change my mind. I think I'm going to give it a 4 also. There's a little bit of close-up camera stuff in conversations that it's like a little simplistic. And it like, I think it helps probably where it's like, we're not making it too flouncy, but it also allows us to like spend a long time in some moments where maybe we don't need to, where it's like, when he's like deciding whether to go like sleep with the French people and he like leaves and like goes into his room and comes back and then leaves and comes back, and he's like, we're going back and forth so many times that I'm thinking of maybe directorially, maybe there's something here, or cinematographically. Yeah,
so I think ultimately for technical, because it's like the first episode, I think part of it's like, I know it's the first episode and I'm going to be flexible with it. Mm-hmm. And maybe there was like more importance to that than we think, you know.
Sure.
I'm just like,
sure.
So I'm gonna stick with 5.
All right.
I think, spoiler alert, I think it might be an all 5 for me.
Oh.
This week. Just because I'm like, when we talk about rewatch, I'm like, yeah, I want to kind of rewatch it again.
Yeah, I do
also,
too.
I want to tell my friends. Also, I'd like,
let's watch it. Let's do a watch party.
I cannot wait for the next episode.
Yeah.
That's another, you know, it's like maybe not like direct rewatch, but it's like
close. Yeah.
It's related for sure. I think there's, I think that would definitely fall into that category, like excitement for the next episode.
Yeah, I agree. I'm giving that a 5 too. I want that to be a 5. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like, I'm just like, I'm like trying to, I'm like, should I change it? I'm like, no, because it's
5s across the board.
I don't see any problems with it.
No. Yeah. Okay.
And there might be things in the second episode
that'll clarify the first one.
Yeah, but I don't think I'd change the first episode because that's all that exists now.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? If we were binging it, I might think differently.
Yeah, we might revisit this too when we get to the end and see. It's like, actually, all told, you know,
this was annoying,
right,
whatever.
we'll figure it out. But maybe we'll commit to rehashing the whole series at some point on an episode.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, at the end of the season. I think it's only 7 episodes long.
Yeah,
but
we could do one per.
Yeah, we could.
Episode if we wanted to.
A series?
A little series. Why not? A little mini-series.
Miniseries.
Tell us what you think.
Yeah.
So many people.
I know. All the people commenting on all of our episodes.
Yeah. So that's my rating. So anything specifically about the rewatch that you want to add or?
No, not really. I think I want to see the next episode. I would watch it with someone else.
Yeah.
You know?
I'd watch it again.
I'd watch it again for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm down. And I just love Julianne Moore.
And she's so good.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our superlatives.
Oscar moment.
Oscar-worthy moment. Gosh, there's a lot of good moments in it. I mean, Julianne Moore in that scene, they've been using it on all of their ads, but it's like really good when she like runs into the Lord Chamberlain in the hall and she's like just in the hallway scene. She's just like in the candlelight of like the lantern and he's like naked and she's like looks at him and just like her face is so good. It's just, she is so good.
She's so good.
And she's terrifying. Like I would be terrified.
Scary.
Yeah. She's good. I like her. And it's just like such a good scene. And it really like you just see, it's like we see the hatching of the plan, you know?
Yeah.
Her first kind of like insertion into the those lives. It's really interesting.
Yeah. I might want to give it to that weird monologue at the beginning because she just sells it to me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, cause I'm like, I keep being like, this moment of hers or this moment of hers. Like she's just like, you're just like drawn to her every time she's on the screen.
Yes.
So it's hard not to like pick them. There's small moments where she, I don't know when when she's like first moving into the estate with the new husband.
Yeah.
And like they have this like intimate moment and it's like a little awkward, but it's not like weird or bad.
Yeah.
She's just like kind of like overly excited about it.
Yeah.
maybe that's what I'll choose. Like she kisses the new husband in the new house, new house to her.
Sure.
There's something very interesting about that interaction
Yeah.
that like really sets it up for me that it's like, she's not like mad at the situation.
Yeah.
But she's also not like, it's like not quite, it's not like a perfect match. There's not like a chemistry.
Right.
But there's like a happiness in the filling of the roles for kind of both of them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that moment for me like clarified. I'm like, oh, we're not doing like my life was hard and I had to make sacrifices and I'm doing these things that are horrible for me. It's like, no. That wasn't that's very interesting. That like idea that like, people have chosen marriage based on life needs before. Yeah. And they weren't like mad and sad about it. It's like the Pride and Prejudice. It's what's her face. It's the friend.
Charlotte. Yeah.
Charlotte.
Yeah.
I think that is the most interesting part. Like that is like what makes Pride and Prejudice to me.
It's in comparison to that. Yeah. It's all foils.
You're like, you're forgetting that people actually just like
need stuff. We need to live.
And the romanticized version of thing is not always the reality.
Right.
And is often not the reality.
Yeah.
And this is just, it really sets it in a time period and doesn't like try to, that's what I mean. It's like, it's not contemporizing that idea.
Right. And I think that's really well put because that clarifies. I am so impressed with Julianne Moore because as like a performer, she's able to put us who are in this, we're in 2024 and we think we can find love and we have all these options and stuff. And to see someone without giving us the entire history lesson, have it make sense. Yeah. It's like when I saw Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, which is like a very similar concept where it's like she gets married out of necessity essentially.
Kinda, yeah.
And
it was a good deal.
Yeah, it was a really good deal for her.
It was a great transaction. So she's like, sure.
And I kind of didn't really get it. Like I was like, but why would she doesn't like it. Why would she do it? Because that's like such a contemporary mindset. Absolutely. And then I saw Abby Mueller do it. And then I was like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Right.
Just because it's like to be able to have a performer make it make sense to contemporary audiences is it's a skill. Talent. It's a real skill.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. That'll be my Oscar moment.
Okay. I think my Oscar moment is... I already did it. You're right. I forgot.
Oh my God.
I was just going to do it again. Okay. Unearned
moment. Okay.
Yeah. For this one, it's the walking in and out and walking in and out. For me. It's that one scene where he's like...
It's him deciding whether or not
he wants to go join this threesome thing with the French boys. Is he going to go sleep with the French boys because bodies are just bodies? But it's just there's a lot of like he leaves and then he comes in and then he like goes back to his room and then he comes out of his room and then he stands in front of the door and then he comes into the room. It's just like a lot of stuff happening.
Right.
They spent a lot of time there. And I guess maybe in that sense, maybe we'll find out, as you said, that it's like there's more to that scene.
Sure.
But it's like so much of the rest of it clips along. I spent so long on this.
Yeah.
And I thought that's
a big transition, though, of course. Like, that is, and it's meant to be important. But I understand what you're saying. Like especially in the pacing, it is a jarring switch.
I just I'm like, just do it. Like I can see a moment of like, I don't know. I wish that there had been offers earlier that he rejected, and then this one he took after a moment of
bit of like the girl he's like fooling around with at the beginning is like, you like boys too. Yeah. And he's like, no, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
There's just like, because it's like setting it up where it's like, it's not so taboo, but it's like, I don't know. It's like, it's just that like, it feels like that very common, like, yeah, but that's not a part of me. Sure. I've thought about, yeah. But like, I don't want to even discuss it. Like, I don't know. There's that kind of, the choice to finally explore that is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
For some people, maybe not all people, but like that does feel like a big, like weirdly, inexplicably, especially to our sensibilities, you know, so we've been married for a number of years. Like it's been years since we've contemplated like whether or not we would want to even explore that part of ourselves.
Right.
But like thinking about like that is an experience that like, it feels like a bigger decision.
Yeah, and I guess maybe what I'm missing is that I didn't see much of, like, they talk about it.
Yeah.
And he like walks through the orgy as it's happening and like averts his eyes, but like him actually getting like a genuine offer to explore it. I wish there had been something earlier. That's not just like subtle, like, oh, I can see how you look at me, the French guy says.
Yeah, but
I wish that there was like, do you want to? No. You know?
I don't mind that his first offer was the one that got him there.
Yeah.
Because it was that close, you know, like it was something he wanted to explore. It's like one of those things like, yes, like he's going to take the first opportunity he can, but that doesn't mean it's easy.
Yeah.
Like that's, again, maybe it wasn't played exactly.
Yeah, there's something about the pacing of it that doesn't jive with me. I'm not sure how to fix it, but that's...
I sort of remember what you're saying, and so like I do feel like there was some sort of like
he didn't need to go back into his room or like there was just...
Yeah, but I don't know. So there's like pieces of that I'm like, yeah, well, it's like it might be it is like both a hard decision, but also doesn't have to take that much time. You know what I mean? Like it's both of those things at the same time. And maybe that is difficult to kind of sit with, to be like, yeah, this is like, he's making a quick decision, but a quick decision is like, he's still doing it the first offer he gets. It just like, it's that like Frozen thing. And maybe that's like, maybe we're too into reality now, and that like, oh, we're giving that a little bit more real time.
Right. Like we really, we compress everything else, and that's been expanded for some reason. And now I think I'll change my mind and redact all of this if there's a mirrored moment later where he leaves and comes back, or someone does that.
Right.
If there's a similar thing where there's like someone goes into a room and then comes back and there's a love affair or tryst or something, I think that'll be very interesting. But for now, it was just like a little bit out of place for me.
Okay, that's fair.
What about you?
I guess similar to your monologue at the beginning moment, I feel like the one overt symbolism thing that happens like pretty early on is like they do the monologue, and it's and they talk about like keep him connected to me for a while, and I'll cut him later, and then we see her in the very next scene cut him down with the same knife.
Probably,
I believe.
Yeah.
Maybe not the same knife, but
it's like,
if it's not, then that's what I assumed anyway. But it's like a very clear like, okay, she's cutting this is time for her to cut the cord.
Yeah.
And
sending him to France. Yeah.
And it's not that it worked for me just fine, kind of, but like it did, like, I'm like,
it's
I did
so
go, okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
It's so dramatic. Yeah.
Oh,
is that what you mean? Yeah.
Layers.
Right.
But it didn't take anything away from me, but I did like, it was almost like funny.
Yeah, it's a little bit. It
almost like cut the tension of the scene.
Yeah, it does a little bit. Yeah.
Where I'm like, she's cutting the cord.
And then he like takes the same knife to like go slit his wrists at the end. It's like a lot of, it's like a through line.
That is less annoying to me, weirdly.
Yeah.
Like, but yes, it's like this, that we're the very direct, like keeping him tethered. Like there's it's strong. This like relationship between them. I mean, it's called Mary and George. Like we are
She's putting all her eggs in his basket.
But I like it. I like the over stylized. That's just the one of them that I'm like,
okay. Right. Yeah, I wasn't sure how the show was going to go at that point. Yes. I was like very skeptical at that point. I was like, is this going to be bad?
Pretty quickly, I got used to it.
Yes. Yeah.
But that was like, if maybe I would have gotten into it a little faster if it wasn't that direct of a symbol. Maybe. Who knows? But yeah, I'll pick that moment.
Cool. Let's do a best costume.
Best
costume moment.
When he gets back from France.
That doublet.
He has this beautiful doublet on.
Oh my God, it's so gorgeous. It's like blue and gold.
It's so pretty.
Oh, it's really pretty.
And I was like, I want that. I want that doublet. It's just like, it makes me, I'm a weirdo, and I like, at the end of my day after the ADHD meds wear off, sometimes I get sucked into like weird phone rabbit holes on Pinterest and Etsy and things like that. I literally was like trying to research 17th century
brocade doublet.
Not specifically a doublet, not trying to like necessarily match it up with that, but like trying to be like, are there any sellers that are doing that? Like that I could like, 17th century is fine for the Renaissance fair. Like that's, I could own that and there'd be a reason for that.
Sure.
And so I spent probably a good like hour after that. A lot of my phone scrolling after that for the evening was scrolling like Pinterest.
Yeah.
And Etsy and being like, what's similar? But like, because the show was very interesting. And I thought it was, especially that piece, I was like, that's so beautiful. I want it. I'm going to have to look up things.
Yeah.
What about you?
I love her green dress.
I mean,
that green dress. She looks so good in green with that red hair. And it's like the first time I've really seen, like it looked so good on her with that collar, that crazy like bone collar. That just looks like scary. She does. She wears it for her wedding, and then she wears it for the king.
Maybe the king, because that's
and I love it's the nice dress that she has, and I love that it's like I'm going to wear my nice dress.
Obsessed.
The
with
one nice dress I have.
That's just
I love
great
it.
Costume design.
Yes,
excellent.
Yeah, she would not.
Chef's kiss.
Maybe have another one. I love that.
It makes me so happy to see repeated costumes, especially in period pieces.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, yeah.
They have like 3 articles of clothing that they just rewear. Yeah.
I don't know why it shouldn't be so exciting.
But it is exciting.
But it is.
I mean, that's like in Gilded Age, where it's like they do that all the time. Where it's like they've repeated those costumes, and I love it so much. I haven't seen the new season yet, so we'll see if they continue. Be curious.
You haven't seen past the first, right?
Yeah.
Is there only 2?
I think there's just 2 now.
Oh.
Yeah. So the green dress, I think it's so beautiful on her.
Favorite costumes. Yeah, the costumes are so good. The boy,
prettiest boy
that you would be tempted by if you were the king.
If I were the king,
which man?
I mean, I would just like stick with the Chamberlain probably.
Chamberlain?
Yeah, just stay with the Chamberlain. That's fine. I don't need to switch to George. The Chamberlain's the one.
Yeah, but which would you
switch to?
Like, what if you haven't met them yet?
Okay.
Mix them up.
The Chamberlain. No, yeah.
Yes,
like
that's
if I hadn't,
allowed,
yeah,
like,
if I hadn't, if they were just like in a lineup.
Yeah. You're like,
Chamberlain. Yeah, Chamberlain. Yeah. What about you?
So in France, not the guy who was his,
like the tutor person?
Not the tutor person, but the tutor's like
the lover,
friend, lover, and assistant, I guess.
Yeah.
He just didn't say very much.
Yeah, he didn't.
Like
but it was French. I'm sure that helps.
I mean, there's something interesting about the tutor himself, the kind of like the forwardness, and their chemistry was very good between him and George.
Yeah. In
a way that wasn't like they did that chemistry and the the sexual tension really well.
Yeah.
Where it wasn't like really like overt, but like there was like an intimacy being built between them, and I was like, that's very interesting. I love that because it's not like one way or the other. It's not like this is secret, but it's also not like they're like
on top of each other. Right. Yeah.
They just
have a relationship that they're building. Yeah. A friendship of some kind. Yeah. I wonder if he'll come back. I'm curious.
I am curious. It feels like they built that up. Yes, I think
the other Frenchman.
It's like it was something just like very.
It's interesting that the most attractive people that they have on there are not the ones with like the haircuts of the time. Like maybe they do have the haircuts of the time, but it's just like a lot of the other people like in the like in the orgies that they show in that scene, they're like have like crazy long hair with like ponytails, but like none of the people that we're supposed to be like heartthrob for have that.
That is
I just wonder if they've like
that they like
wonder if they've just contemporized their looks.
That is
for
something
us.
I watch episodes, but Bernadette Banner, who like reviews costume design, sometimes she also has like other content, but like she also has a review of costume in films and movies, and she often talks about how it's very, very common for shows to contemporize hair and makeup at the very least, even when they're doing the rest of the costume correctly. And I assume that like a lot of our contemporary sensibilities about what is attractive is really influenced by things like that. Like we really make big, and so like they really want to drive home the fact that like certain people are attractive.
These are the attractive folks, yeah.
And I'm curious because I would love to see the version that they don't do that. I'm not saying that they're doing that with this because I don't know what the hairstyles were.
Sure. I'd be curious. I'm curious, like it would be like, oh, they just look wackadoo to our eye now, and so we would never get.
Exactly.
We would never look at George and be like, ooh, what a hottie, because he'd have like wackadoo hair.
Right. I wonder.
Yeah. Curious.
Yeah.
Finally, most excited story seed.
Ooh,
what story seed are you most excited about?
I guess I'm like really interested to see more from the Queen, weirdly. Because there's like something that was like very interestingly set up. We talked about like that relationship between like King, Queen, Chamberlain, like that like trio and like the social dynamic between the three.
Yeah.
I think they just gave us a little flavor.
And if we're to assume that George ends up trying to horn in there, the Queen might have something to say about it.
Positively or negatively.
Or negatively, right. Curious.
Very interesting. So something about the Queen and the way that she kind of reacted, where it's also like, I also am here. I also get to play a part. And I'm like, oh, fun. Also not like, woe is me. Like there's not a lot of woe is me, which I enjoy.
Yeah.
People are just like in their positions and they're doing what they can in their positions.
Yeah.
I love that.
Cool.
And there's just like a teeny tiny part with her. And so I'm like very interested about that.
Yeah.
What about you?
I am interested in particular with, the relationship between George and Mary, but that obviously that's the whole show. But I'm interested in like the last moment where it's like he is in on the deal, where it's like so often we see stories like this where there's like a puppeteer,
right,
and a puppet, right, and it's
or at
like
least somebody who's like being
who's like yes, and there's like a little bit of him being like pushed into discomfort but I'm like curious to see how in cahoots they are.
Yeah. If they
get estranged. It's like I think I'm looking forward to a departure from what we normally see.
I hope so.
I hope there's like a different paradigm.
I feel like they already feels different.
It does.
So,
I hope it stays that way. Because we're used to seeing, he's going to rebel or he's just enthralled to her or whatever. But I want him to have some ideas too, and I'm curious. if that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
That he can show her something new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not in a way that they're like, they're at odds or
Right.
you're like, you know, like they don't have to. Yeah. There's interesting potential in that, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for watching Two Grooms, One Plot. I am Pavi Proczko. And remember, if you really want to make a splash, just start a fight in front of a king.
And I'm Colin Funk. And remember, you should make all content gay.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Two Grooms, One Plot, a Pavitas Productions project, hosted by Colin Funk and Pavi Proczko. This podcast was produced by Chicago Podcast Studio. Our opening cartoon was created by Gloriu, and our theme song was composed by me, Pavi Proczko. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite listening platform. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Two Grooms, One Plot for updates on new episodes and behind-the-scenes content. If you have any feedback, comments, concerns, or kudos, you can email us at twogroomsOneplot@gmail.com. Please rate and review us wherever you can. It would help us out a bunch. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time.